Robert Kiyosaki says, buy assets. Morgan Housel says, survive. One made millions flipping real estate. The other watched fortunes disappear overnight. So which one is lying to you? Neither. And that's the problem. Because right now, you're following advice that's destroying your wealth, and you don't even know it. You think you're building assets. You think you're being smart with asset allocation and portfolio management, but here's what nobody tells you. The strategy that builds wealth is not the same strategy that keeps it. And if you don't understand the difference, you'll spend your entire life making money just to watch it vanish. Let me show you what I mean. You're probably doing one of two things right now. Either you're grinding, working extra hours, maybe even starting a side hustle because you heard Kiyosaki say, the poor work for money. Or you're being cautious, maxing out your index funds, focusing on compounding interest over decades because Housel says wealth is what you don't spend. Both feel right, both sound smart, but here's the uncomfortable truth. You're stuck between two completely opposite financial philosophies, and the confusion is costing you thousands every single year. Rich Dad. Poor Dad tells you to take leverage, acquire income-producing assets, and escape the rat race through cash flow. The Psychology of Money tells you that survival trumps returns, that getting wealthy is about staying wealthy, and that retirement planning isn't sexy, but it works. Same goal, totally different paths. And the research shows why you're confused. Daniel Kahneman won a Nobel Prize for proving something terrifying. We feel losses twice as strongly as gains. It's called loss aversion. That's why when Kiyosaki says, take risks, your brain screams no. And when Housel says, be conservative, you feel like you're missing out. You're not indecisive. Your brain is literally wired to freeze when both options feel dangerous. So let's fix this, because the answer isn't choosing one philosophy over the other. The answer is understanding when each one is right and when it's sabotaging your wealth management strategy. Here's the first conflict: leverage versus survival. Kiyosaki built his empire on one idea: use other people's money. Buy real estate with debt. Let tenants pay your mortgage. Scale faster than your salary ever could. He's not wrong. Leverage is how the wealthy multiply capital gains without multiplying their own cash. But Morgan Housel watched the 2008 financial crisis destroy people who did exactly that. He watched investors with perfect portfolios lose everything because they couldn't survive one bad year. His message: survival is everything. If you optimize for returns but can't survive volatility, you'll get wiped out right before the comeback. Here's the psychological trap. It's called recency bias. Whatever financial pain you've experienced recently feels like the only truth. If you watched your parents lose their house in 2008, Housel's advice feels like gospel. If you grew up watching your parents work 40 years for a pension that barely covers expenses, Kiyosaki's message hits different. Neither bias is serving you, because the real question isn't leverage or survival, it's timing. Kiyosaki is right when you're young, when you have time to recover from mistakes, when your income can absorb a bad deal. Housel is right when you're close to retirement, when one market crash could derail 30 years of compounding interest, when you can't afford to start over. But here's what you're losing right now. If you're in your 20s or 30s, playing it safe with only S&P 500 index funds, you're leaving millions on the table. And if you're in your 50s, loading up on leveraged real estate, you're one recession away from losing everything. The mistake isn't the strategy. The mistake is using the wrong strategy for your stage. Let's talk about the second conflict: earning versus keeping. Kiyosaki's entire philosophy is about earning more. Increase your income, buy more assets, scale your cash flow. Financial freedom is a math problem. When your passive income exceeds your expenses, you win. Housel says that's backwards. He points to lottery winners, athletes, and celebrities who earned millions and died broke. The problem wasn't income. The problem was keeping it. Wealth isn't about what you make. It's about what you don't spend. And more importantly, it's about not losing what you've already built. Richard Thaler calls this mental accounting. We treat money differently based on where it comes from. Found money feels different than earned money. Investment gains feel different than salary. And that difference makes us reckless. You felt this. You're careful with your paycheck. But when you make money in the market, suddenly you're thinking about upgrades, a better car, a nicer watch, because it doesn't feel like real money. That's the trap. Kiyosaki teaches you to earn. But without Housel's mindset, you'll spend what you earn. You'll upgrade your lifestyle every time your cash flow increases, and you'll stay on the treadmill forever. Here's what happens in real life. Let's say you follow Kiyosaki perfectly. You buy a rental property. It generates $2,000 a month in positive cash flow. That's $24,000 a year. Enough to change your life, but you don't change your life. You upgrade your apartment. You buy a nicer car because now you can afford the payment. Your expenses rise to meet your income. And 12 months later, you're exactly where you started, just with more assets and more stress. Housel saw this pattern everywhere. It's called the hedonic treadmill. We adapt to positive changes and return to our baseline happiness. More money doesn't make you feel richer unless you actually keep it. So here's the brutal truth. Kiyosaki gets you into the game, but Housel keeps you in it. Third conflict, control versus randomness. Kiyosaki loves control. He tells you to educate yourself, to understand markets, to become an expert. Financial intelligence is your weapon. You can control outcomes through knowledge and execution. Real estate is perfect for this mindset. You pick the property, negotiate the deal, manage the tenants, force appreciation. Housel says you're delusional. He's not being mean. He's being honest. The psychology of money is filled with examples of brilliant investors who lost everything because of bad luck. Market timing they couldn't predict. Black swan events. Randomness that no amount of intelligence could overcome. Amos Tversky's research proves this. We overestimate our control over outcomes. It's called the illusion of control. You think your skill matters more than it does. You think your research protects you from chaos. It doesn't. The 2020 pandemic proved this. People with perfect wealth management strategies, diversified portfolios, solid retirement planning lost 30% in 30 days, not because they were wrong, because the world changed. But here's where it gets interesting. Kiyosaki's belief in control is what gets you to take action. If you sit around accepting that everything is random, you'll never invest. You'll never take risks. You'll save money in a checking account and watch inflation destroy your purchasing power. Housel's acceptance of randomness is what keeps you humble. It's what makes you keep 6 months of cash. It's what stops you from going all in on a sure thing. It's what lets you survive long enough to benefit from compounding. You need both: the confidence to act, the humility to prepare for failure. Fourth conflict, action versus patience. Kiyosaki's philosophy is urgency. The poor wait. The middle class save slowly. The rich act now. Every day you delay buying assets is a day your money loses value to inflation. Time is the enemy of cash. the enemy of waiting. You need to move fast, learn fast, fail fast, adjust fast. Housel's philosophy is patience. He quotes Warren Buffett. The stock market is a device for transferring money from the impatient to the patient. Compounding interest only works if you give it decades. The S&P 500 has averaged 10% annual returns for a century, but only if you don't panic sell during the crashes. This is the conflict destroying you right now, because both are true. If you're too patient, you'll miss opportunities. Real estate deals don't wait. Market bottoms don't announce themselves. The perfect moment to buy assets is almost always when you're scared, and if you wait for certainty, you'll buy at the top. But if you're too action-oriented, you'll chase shiny objects. You'll jump from strategy to strategy. You'll sell during dips and buy during peaks because you're reacting instead of planning. Here's what the research shows. Most people fail because they oscillate. They're patient for 6 months, then panic and take massive action at the worst possible time. Or they act decisively for a year, then freeze up right when momentum matters most. The solution? Know which mode you need right now. If you have no assets, no portfolio, no capital working for you, Kiyosaki is right. You need action. You need to buy your first investment property or start dollar cost averaging into index funds immediately. But if you already have assets, if you're already in the market, if your portfolio management is working, Housel is right. You need to stop tinkering. Stop chasing the next opportunity. Let compounding interest do its job. Most wealth isn't built by doing more. It's built by not screwing up what's already working. Here's the twist nobody tells you. Kiyosaki and Housel aren't opposites. They're phases. Phase 1 is accumulation. This is your 20s, 30s, maybe early 40s. You have time. You have energy. You can recover from mistakes. This is Kiyosaki's world. You need to acquire assets aggressively. Buy income-producing real estate if you can. Invest heavily in index funds. Maximize your capital gains potential. Take calculated risks, because the upside is decades of compounding, and the downside is recoverable. Your goal in Phase 1, build the machine. Create cash flow. Accumulate assets faster than your expenses grow. Accept that you'll make mistakes. You're buying reps, not perfection. Phase 2 is preservation. This is your late 40s, 50s, and beyond. You've built something. Now the goal changes. It's no longer about maximum returns. It's about not losing what you have. This is Housel's world. You shift to wealth management over wealth building. You prioritize retirement planning. You reduce leverage. You keep more cash. You stop chasing 10% gains that come with 50% risk. Your goal in Phase 2, protect the machine, survive volatility, optimize for longevity, not excitement. The millionaires who followed Kiyosaki their whole lives often blow up in their 50s. One bad leveraged deal, one market crash they can't ride out. Game over. The people who followed Housel their whole lives often retire with less than they could have had. Safe, comfortable, but wondering, what if? Here's what you do today. Ask yourself, what phase am I in? If you're in Phase 1 and you're being too conservative, you're losing compound years you can never get back. Start investing in assets this month, not next year, this month. If you're in Phase 2 and you're still acting like you're invincible, you're gambling with money you can't afford to lose. Shift to preservation now. Lock in your gains. And here's the final lesson. Wealth isn't about making money. It's about keeping it. Kiyosaki gets you into the game. Housel keeps you in it. You need both. You need the belief that wealth is possible and the humility to know that keeping it is harder than earning it.